Hello, good morning, Michael. Hi, Michael. Can you hear us?
Okay. How are you? Can you hear me?
Hey,
Great,
Michael.
great.
Good, good. You guys doing well today?
Yeah, good. Good morning.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, our day is about to end. Yours is just starting.
That's correct. That's correct.
All right, we are live right now. Guys, thank you for joining us tonight. It's crypto night. So we have, as usual, our crypto futurist over here, Andrew Wong. And we have a guest today all the way from New York. And he's just having his coffee, I think. we have Michael Burgess from Ren Project. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Michael.
You did indeed. How is everyone?
All right, awesome. Guys, thank you for joining us this evening. Okay, we have David in the house, Im in Pang, Jatinder, and Daniel. Hi, and these are the ones who have actually put in the comments. All right, welcome everybody. We are still waiting. We're just going to make a few announcements before we start. So, as usual, whatever that's being discussed here today are intended as not as an investment advice. All right, is basically for informational and educational purposes only. All right, and what we're going to do is I'm going to start off as usual to give an update on the three cryptocurrencies that we have been monitoring, right, on our crypto night. Right, and if you are still new with us, please do like our Facebook page and also follow us so that you can get notifications on whenever we go live. All right, or you can also go to YouTube, uh, get onto Equity Tracker, and please click subscribe so that you too can get notification. We'll be streaming live on YouTube as well. All right. And so I'm just going to share with you the charts first, right? So we're going to take a look at the three cryptos, which is Bitcoin, um, Ethereum, and also Litecoin, right? So we'll take a look at what's happening on the markets in the past 1 week. So there's not much movement actually on the cryptocurrencies in the past 1 week. In fact, the price were flat, trading around $9,400 or US dollars, right? And now what we are seeing is we are seeing some weakness in that current sideways trend that we see since May this year, right? So for the past 1.5 months, the price has just been trading in a range. But the trend was supposed to continue if the price is able to go above the 10,400 points or $10,400 that we mentioned last week, right? But it keeps on going down, and the indicators are showing some weakness in the current trend. We call it a bearish divergence, right? So if you notice at the bottom, there's an RSI indicator. Uh, Let me see whether I've shared my screen. Sorry. Let me just share my screen first. Okay, so Bitcoin prices has been trading sideways, and it has actually gone below the uptrend line that we have drawn right earlier. So that shows, first of all, that shows some weakness in the price currently. And if you look at the bottom chart, there's an RSI indicator that's dotted, and there's actually a bearish divergence on the chart. That basically shows that the momentum of this uptrend is currently weak, right? If we don't see price rebounding and go above $10,400, in the next few weeks, the chances of it going down right now is higher than it's going up, right? So we're probably going to see a bigger correction for the price of Bitcoin, and the range that we are looking at is around $7,200. I know it doesn't sound good, but the market needs to correct after we see a strong bullish trend that started in March, right? So the blue line that you see, that's a 200-day moving average, right? So there are actually three levels if the price were to pull back. Okay, the first level, based on the 200-day average, is around 8,200, right? And we have 7,200 based on a 50% retracement from the bullish trend. So of course, when it comes down to 8,002, if it cannot hold at that level, then it's probably going down to 7,002, right? But the chances of it going down for a correction is higher than it's going up at the moment, right? Unless the price is able to rebound and go back above $10,000. So now I'm going to go into Ethereum. Ethereum is showing signs of weakness. Remember, last week we expect the price to actually pull back to the support level, and it's now currently trading at the support level of the uptrend line that we draw. And also it shows some weakness, right? The RSI indicator is also showing divergence on the current uptrend. So we're probably going to expect a correction rather than a continuation at this point of time, right? So the 200-day moving average for Ethereum is at $183. So it coincides with the 38.2 retracement or Fibonacci retracement at 190. So if the price do come down, and of course, if Bitcoin comes down, the rest of the other coins will probably come down as well. So for Ethereum, if it comes down for a correction, then it's probably going to find support at $190, right? If you don't see it rebound, breaking above the resistance above $250, then the chances of it coming down is very high. Litecoin, as usual, still going sideways. We're also seeing weakness on that current trend. So for Litecoin, if I'm going to zoom it earlier, we already see that the price is now testing the uptrend line. So it's either going to rebound from here or it's going to pull back, right? So if it rebounds, and then you can go $50. But looking at the prices of Bitcoin and Ethereum, where it show a very weak uptrend, the chances of, again, a correction downwards is likely going to happen. All right, so we are looking at, if the price is unable to rebound, the price will probably come down to about $38. That's where the next support level is. All right, so that's my take on these cryptocurrencies. I hope that you're able to use this information to make your decisions. But remember, this again is not any investment advice, right? It's just my opinion on how I look at the crypto markets today. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to get Andrew to take over right now. He's going to introduce Michael further, proper, and then later you can ask questions. In fact, if you have any questions at all, you can keep the questions coming, and whether it's to Michael or to Andrew, just put the questions over there, all right, so that we can pick up the questions and answer them. All right, so Andrew, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Benny, and good evening to everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and very good morning to you, Michael. Thanks for agreeing to come on the show. Very much appreciate it. Tonight we have a very special guest. His name is Michael Burgess, and he's right now in New York, and he's the head of operations of the Ren Project. Again, tonight's show, as with every night, this is for informational and educational purposes only. So this is not financial advice. And also for full disclosure, I am a big Ren fan, and I have invested in Ren, 2 years ago for I think it was in 2018, early 2018. I've been hodling on since, and Ren has recently just launched their mainnet, and so far no bugs found. So it's been very successful. Quite a few transactions have gone through, but I'll spare you the details because I'll let you hear it directly from Michael himself. And Michael's very, very, very busy, so we appreciate the fact that Michael's come on. And probably it's 12 hours difference, I believe. So so Mike's actually jumped on, gotten up really early to jump on the show. So thank you so much, Mike, for joining us. And over to you to introduce what Ren is. Actually, sorry, before that, so last week we talked about the concept of DeFi, decentralized finance, what that meant. I gave some examples of there's a person. So I made reference to Mariano Conti, who loaned himself money to buy a car. He's from MakerDAO. And so we introduced the whole concept of what decentralized finance is, but just on the surface. And I'm sure you're the expert on that. So, so over to you, Michael. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, yeah, pleasure to meet everyone. And thank you, Andrew and Benny. Definitely excited to be on. So I'll just kind of give an overview of Ren, our history, a little bit about what it does and what it really, and what kind of we're excited about is really what it empowers for the future. So yeah, I got some slides. It's, just a couple of slides. It won't take too long, but let me share my screen and make sure you all can see them. So I'll double check really quickly. Okay. Are you all able to see this?
Not yet. So if you just click on the share screen button at the bottom.
How about now?
Yep, coming on. Yep, cool.
Perfect.
Nice.
All right. So yeah, I'll give you a little history of Ren first and foremost. Yeah, so we started off in late 2017, 2018, and we've really kind of had our heads down ever since, really building this product. And our core product here that we'll be discussing today is RenVM. And kind of the easiest way to think about RenVM's goal in the industry and kind of really what it provides the DeFi space is interoperability, right? So interoperability is kind of the movement of assets across different blockchains, right? Bitcoin's here, and then we've got Ethereum over here. And they're two separate blockchains, but they don't communicate with each other. So we've essentially built a little bridge in between the two chains that allows you to connect the unconnected, if you will. It allows you to transfer value from two separate blockchains and kind of put them on one blockchain or vice versa. And for the purpose of this call and this demonstration, we'll just kind of use bringing Bitcoin to Ethereum because that's the main use case. That's where we're seeing a lot of traction in general. So while RenVM can support any ECDSA based blockchain, we'll just use Bitcoin moving to Ethereum today as really the core example here. So that's really the overview. And yeah, so right here, blockchains are siloed. We've got a bunch of liquidity in Bitcoin, and the problem with DeFi, at least, is it's all built on Ethereum, and that kind of locks out all of this liquidity, right? That could be utilized and could really kind of amp up the utility of DeFi in itself. So our core focus is really bringing this liquidity over to Ethereum. And that we see as kind of a benefit for the entire space, in fact. So as Andrew mentioned, we just released our product on May 27th, and we've already brought about a total of, I think, $3 million over to Ethereum. So we're pretty excited. Everything's working quite well as of right now. So everything's kicked off. But yeah, essentially blockchains are siloed, and we're kind of connecting them essentially. And happy to, if I jump over anything or if I'm, speak too fast about a particular topic, feel free to ask questions after the presentation is over. It's rather quick, so I'll spare you all. But yeah, so essentially, the concept here is if we can bring all this value that's locked in all these other blockchains, so Bitcoin, for example, but there's so many others. If we can really bring them to Ethereum, and that's where all the functionality is. So on Ethereum, that's where you can lend out your assets, or you can leverage them and earn interest on them. There's a whole set of things you can do to really kind of create passive income, and that all lives on Ethereum. So that's kind of where all the action is, right? So that's kind of the context, the backdrop for Ethereum itself, and we use Ethereum and DeFi kind of interchangeably, but DeFi can live on any chain, but mostly it just lives on Ethereum now. So yeah, we'll kind of go over RenVM here. Yeah, it facilitates the fluid movement of value between blockchains, pretty straightforward. And yeah, so I'll kind of jump into how it actually works. And I think that it's quite complicated, obviously, but the easiest way to think about RenVM is really it's a decentralized custodian, right? So you send Bitcoin to a custodian, and I'll back up. A custodian is essentially just a bank, if you will. It holds your assets for you. And we see typical custodians out in the world like BitGo, which is an organization, and they actually hold your Bitcoin kind of in a vault in cold storage, literally. And then, when you want it back, they'll give it back to you, right? But that's a centralized custodian. They have control over that, and if you get sanctioned or something like that, they can essentially, freeze your assets if it comes down to that. So that's the kind of the downfall of centralized custodians. So RenVM is a decentralized custodian. I'll get into really what that means. But it's essentially a network that holds a private key. So no entity, no individual actually holds your assets. It's a network. So that's kind of the easiest way to think about it. So you send your Bitcoin to RenVM. It custodials it, and then mints a one-for-one representation of your Bitcoin on Ethereum, right? And two kind of very important nuances is that it's fluid. One being it's fluid. So as soon as you send your Bitcoin to RenVM, it mints that representation on Ethereum kind of pretty much immediately after the confirmations. So assets can move across this bridge back and forth pretty fluidly. So that's a very important nuance. And kind of the second one is that it's composable, and that's a trickier concept to explain, but I'll give it a shot nonetheless. And that basically means you can think of it as an adapter. You can kind of plug RenVM into all of these DeFi applications here on the right-hand side. We've got kind of Maker, Uniswap, DiDEX, and Compound. And so that allows the user to really have a native Bitcoin experience, right? So they just send Bitcoin to a Bitcoin address, and then it shows up in their DeFi application. And all the stuff I was previously mentioning is all done under the hood. So, RenVM takes the asset, mints the representation, and then turns it into an _ERC20, which is really what all these DeFi applications kind of digest as their standardization token, essentially. But again, that's all happening under the hood. And you as a user really just sends your Bitcoin in, and then you can, go and do what you want with it, whether that's lend it out and earn interest, or, that's leverage it. You can leverage Bitcoin 10x on some DeFi applications and all that good stuff. So as a user, that's really all you have to do. Now, I'll kind of dive in a little bit of how RenVM works, and again, back to kind of the network component. We call all of the nodes in the network dark nodes, in fact. So these are, all the little kind of personal computers that all of our community powers. And, it's just like a Bitcoin node or an Ethereum node, right? You have to set it up on your computer, and it essentially powers the network, right? So these nodes kind of combine their work together. And, let's say someone sends in 1 Bitcoin. They all see this, they recognize it, they kind of converge. They accept the Bitcoin, and then they say, okay, we've received our Bitcoin after 6 confirmations, and now we're going to mint, the 1 Bitcoin on Ethereum, for example. And that's all done kind of at a network level. And the really special part about RenVM, and I can explain this in more detail, is the fact that the private key that holds the Bitcoin is hidden. Now, it's hidden from, the team, any user out there in the world, but it's also hidden from the dark nodes themselves. So they don't actually know how to access the Bitcoin, and that's really where the innovation lies, because that means that no one can access the money, essentially, and then the dark nodes can really only spend the money once 1/3 of them come together and agree that a Bitcoin has been received, and then they'll of course mint it on Ethereum. So that's really kind of the technological advantage, I'd say, is no one really has access to these private keys except the network, and that's where the security comes in, and that's why we're allowed to, or that we're kind of like permitted to custodial all of these assets. And for those who are technical out there, I'll explain actually what our protocol is, and kind of, these aren't layman terms by any means, but yeah, so it's a Byzantine fault-tolerant protocol that does ECDSA threshold key generation and signing via SMPC. And that's kind of the technical term, if you will, for our network. And yeah, and as explained, this allows RenVM to hold a digital asset and create a one-for-one representation on other blockchains. And yeah, down at the bottom, you see it's composable, so it allows a native cross-chain usage in DeFi. And that's kind of really the most exciting part about all of this is, we've heard so much about, interoperability. In 2017, I'm sure Andrew and Benny are familiar, there's all these interoperability protocols like claiming kind of this universal ability to move assets across any chain, but 2 or 3 years later, we still really haven't gotten it, because it's an incredibly difficult challenge to solve. And RenVM is really just the beginning. The assets we support currently are Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Zcash. So we can bring those assets over to Ethereum. But as mentioned kind of in the beginning, we can support any ECDSA based blockchain, but those are kind of the ones we're starting off in the beginning. And yeah, so all of those can be used in DeFi right now on Ethereum. And a little further nuance is Ethereum's a destination chain, right? So we're porting all of these assets over to Ethereum. RenVM can do that for any layer 1 solution. So we can bring these assets over to Polkadot or Tron or EOS or Tezos, and any layer 1 protocol. Essentially, we just kind of have to build it out, right? So that is really what it's capable of. But I'll kind of refine that point and really speak to where I see RenVM being most successful in the future. And this is what I'd like to see for the organization, and I think a need in the world at large, in fact, as well. So as mentioned, it powers interoperability for the digital ecosystem. But here I'll kind of paint a picture for you. Imagine a world in which you can send, Facebook's Libra, which is kind of their upcoming, stable coin, right? And then receive, China's digital currency, which is a state-backed, currency. And in the middle, you have RenVM, which is accepting these assets and minting them on a particular chain, let's just say Ethereum, and then exchanging them for the Ethereum-based Chinese digital currency, right? So that the settlement layers on Ethereum, and RenVM is actually doing the transfer of assets. But for the user, for the average user, they're literally just sending in the Facebook's Libra and then receiving US dollar or the Chinese backed digital currency or any stable coin, in fact. So if you can take one step further, this really kind of creates a new global Forex market that's completely permissionless. There's no central entity. You as a user simply has a stable coin, and you'd like, say you're traveling and you'd like to, receive the destination country's digital asset, for example. So all you have to do is send it into a DeFi application that has these two stable coins, and then you get the digital asset that you're looking for. You don't need to sign up for any accounts. You don't need to, ask anyone's permission. You simply, ask for the digital currency that you're looking for and send in the one you have. And this is, again, all powered under the hood by RenVM and in this case, Ethereum. So you can imagine what that will really allow for global commerce, right? It's kind of lowering the barriers for anyone. In fact, it doesn't matter where you are. You can be in the States, you can be in South Africa, you can be anywhere and have access to this technology. And that's really what excites me about RenVM, but ultimately DeFi in general. As Andrew explained, you guys kind of had a conversation about it last week. And, the most exciting part is the fact that anyone in the world can access it, and it's completely permissionless. You don't need to have a bank account or, kind of all these things that do create barriers for some people. So at the end of the day, we really see RenVM as kind of a crucial piece in the global, the future global financial infrastructure, if you will. So that overall really excites me, and kind of, why we've been working so hard, and the rest of the team as well. Of course, we have a great development team who's really made this all possible. In fact, I'm just the mouthpiece, right? So, we're really excited. But at the end of the day, we're just getting started. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them here once I'm done, which should be here in about 2 or 3 more minutes. And happy to answer any questions. And if you want to set up a dark node or do anything like that, it's actually pretty straightforward for the average user as well. And that's helping the network at large grow and all this good stuff. So we'd love to have you. And really, I think that's it. We'll just hop into questions. I find those more valuable, anyways, rather than me kind of preaching to you all. So I will leave it there, in fact, and. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you all.
Cool. Thanks for that, Michael. That was a really good explanation of what Ren is. I've actually so I was busy taking down notes while you were talking about Ren, and I'm sure the audience has a lot of questions as well. So to start off with, I'll start with like some simple questions, right? So we talked about the. By the way, I'm actually really excited about the Ren project, and personally, I feel that this is like the early days of when the world was introduced to the concept of Bitcoin. Like this is, and you know, for those who are a little bit more technically inclined, RenVM or Ren feels like it's TCP/IP, right? It's kind of in that invisible, like it'll operate at that invisible layer where you're using your apps, but you don't need to know what TCP/IP is and or how TCP/IP works, right? And but it powers the internet. Like it is the information superhighway of the internet, right? Without that, there is no communication. So that, to me, that's what Ren feels like, and I'm actually very excited to see this project succeed, because you know it's like you're building a universal translator to translate any language. You know, anyone can speak into this universal translator, and someone else is going to understand you. You know, like it's amazing.
That's a great example.
Cool. You can use that in your next live stream. Okay, so just to start off with some questions, right? So you talked about the concept of a RenVM or setting up a dark node, right? Can anyone set up a dark node?
Yes. So that's kind of, you know, in the vein of all this being, you know, open and permissionless, right? So anyone in the world can set up a dark node right now. So there are some minimum requirements. You do need 100,000 Ren, and that is our native token. And that's really a good behavior bond to open a node, so that it doesn't let anyone in the world, you know, set up, you know, 100 nodes, or, for example. And that essentially kind of ties into the economic security of the system in a few different ways. And I can go very deep into that if you'd like, but I'll try and keep it at a high level. Yeah, essentially, yeah, you need 100,000 Ren. And then you need a home computer, so, you know, a laptop, anything like that. And then we've got a set of instructions on our website, and, you know, you can reach out to me, and I'll happily help you as well set one up. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It takes about 10 minutes. So you need to set up a VPS provider, which is like Amazon Cloud or DigitalOcean. And then you essentially start it off on your computer, and then it just runs in the background. And we've got a little command center in which you can kind of see your node in the network at large, kind of see the fees that are coming in and all this good stuff. So it's actually quite fun to run one, and we've made it. We tried to make it very easy for the average user to start one up.
Cool. I've actually looked at the instructions, and it looks pretty straightforward. I think it probably looks the most straightforward on the DigitalOcean.
Correct.
Platform.
Yeah. So for the less technically inclined, we very much encourage you to start one on DigitalOcean, because it is so simple. You know, I was actually, when I first started, I was like, oh man, this is going to be complicated. And then I did it, and I was like, you know, it was 5 minutes. So yeah, just follow the instructions step by step, and you're good to go, really.
Yep. So for the viewers who are listening in, so can you tell us what's the advantage of setting up a dark node? Like, can you earn fees? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the really kind of important parts of this is economic incentives to keep the network running, right? You know, no one's going to do all this work for free, right? So one of the key points about RenVM is every time an asset moves across that bridge that I was mentioning, RenVM, the network, takes a 10 basis points fee, and that fee is distributed equally to all dark nodes. So you as a user, or you as a dark node, someone who's running a dark node, you get access to those fees, essentially. Now you're doing work, you're starting a dark node, you're participating in the network, of course, but you can think of it, you know, as passive income in a way, where you set up a dark node, and then as RenVM grows as a network, as these transactions start moving across the bridge more frequently, you know, you're earning these fees essentially by running a dark node. So that is the main benefit for doing so.
So for the viewers out there, so basically so this is kind of like, for the viewers who are probably more familiar with Bitcoin mining, right? So it's kind of like Bitcoin mining, where you're setting up a node, right? And you're just letting it run and do its part for the network. But then you earn a fee for your troubles, right? For setting it up.
Exactly.
Yep. Cool. It sounds like a great way for making some passive income.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it helps the network. You know, obviously, kind of propels utility for DeFi at large. So, I mean, you're moving this space forward in a way as well by participating. And by virtue of running a node, you also earn fees, which is a win-win. So.
And obviously, the whole concept of DeFi, like decentralized finance, it's almost, well, like you're democratizing that, isn't it? I mean, you're allowing anyone and everyone to kind of be part of that infrastructure with as little or as much as they want to. And obviously, the more people, the more individuals who actually run it, the more decentralized that network is.
Correct.
Like the better it is for everyone.
Yep. So the maximum theoretical capacity of RenVM is 10,000 dark nodes, because our token supply is capped at 1 billion, so there can only ever be 10,000 because it's 100,000 each. But right now, I think we have currently about 575 dark nodes running, which is pretty. It's a lot more than we expected in the beginning. Then we've got 40 or 50 pending registration at this point. So what, 650 or so, something like that. But yeah, the more the better for the network. It makes it more robust and resilient, in fact.
Yep. So you mentioned that there's 1 billion Ren tokens in circulation, and obviously every time you run a dark node, that's 100,000 Ren tokens that is tied up, right? And obviously, the more dark nodes that come into the ecosystem, the more Ren tokens get tied up, right? And the maximum number of dark nodes that you can have on the system is 100,000 dark nodes.
10,000, in fact. 10,000
dark nodes. Okay.
Yeah. So from the token economic perspective, we have a lot of these Ren tokens, in fact, locked up within the dark node ecosystem, right? So there's even less within kind of the tradable ecosystem. So there are some beneficial token economics as a result of having all those locked up as well.
Okay. So for someone who's running a dark node, right, using running a RenVM or a dark node. And right now you said that you support Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Zcash.
Correct.
Was it just the three, or
just the three, and then kind of the destination chain we support right now is Ethereum, but we can add as many kind of incoming assets as we'd like, as long as they're ECDSA based, and then same with the destination chain, right? I mean, we focused on these three and Ethereum specifically as well, because that's really where all the action is at this point. And we're kind of assessing the landscape and seeing which assets will be best to add, and which asset or which kind of base layer chains or layer one chains we'd like to port assets over to as well. So we're currently in the assessment of that, but we'll be turning these decisions over to a governance mechanism eventually. So we as a team will kind of step away and allow the dark node holders and the community and just general users in the public really kind of dictate which assets we do add in the future. But that's a kind of a medium-term thing. As you can imagine, governance is a tricky subject, right? So we're taking it kind of slow, but we think it's the more prudent approach, in fact.
Okay, that's really cool. You mentioned the ECDSA blockchains, right?
And so yeah, I don't want to butcher the acronym, elliptical curve something signature.
That's all right. Can you give us some examples of like what sort of tokens?
Yeah, so that's a majority of the blockchains out there. In fact, there's a few kind of nuances to that, like Monero and the privacy-based blockchains they have a different signature algorithm, so it's a little trickier. I mean, we can support those, but it just kind of it takes a little bit more engineering, heavy lifting on our side. But yeah, that's why we're really focused on ECDSA, and I think that is indeed a majority of the assets out there today.
Cool. Now I've got now I thought when you painted that scenario, that was or that example, that was really cool. Where in future, actually not future, right now, developers can actually build DApps, right, or decentralized apps. And they can use Ren, the Ren network as a protocol layer, at the protocol layer, right? So that example you gave of, if I wanted to send some Libra coins to, the Chinese DCEP, the digital currency, you can actually use RenVM to kind of to facilitate that exchange.
Indeed, correct.
That sounds really cool because it's such a, like I say, it sounds like a universal translation tool, right? Either way, it's just that layer that facilitates the exchange.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this is a little hypothetical. We of course need to look at the design of the system of these two currencies, right, to make sure they are indeed compatible. So this is a longer term goal, but nonetheless, I think really kind of paints a picture of what's possible with RenVM, and really kind of a world in which these assets are moving freely, kind of wherever you are, and that's personally what really excites me the most about the project. I was going to think of another easy way to kind of think about this is, when you're at the airport and you're exchanging currency, right? The individual that's taking your US dollar and giving you euro, for example, like you can think of RenVM as that individual. They're just accepting it. Like, okay, I'll accept the US dollar and then give you, your euros in exchange. That's another easy way to kind of think about RenVM. We're just facilitating the transfer of assets, in fact.
Cool. So going back to about, let's say someone were interested to run a dark node, right? And then they start running that. What's the so you mentioned you get 10 basis points, which is 0.1%.
Correct.
For each transaction, whether minting or coming out. So what denomination or what coin do you earn those fees in?
So in the asset that's transferred. So if Bitcoin is brought to Ethereum, then the user receives, or the network receives 10 basis points of Bitcoin, and that's distributed evenly throughout all the currently running dark nodes. So any asset that's supported is what the user will receive in fees.
Cool. Oh, okay. Got a couple more questions. I think we've got some questions from.
If I may, for a non-technical guy, I mean, we are talking about decentralized finance, right? So where do you see Ren in the space of the traditional financial industry? Are you like a money changer, or you're like a Visa or a MasterCard network? So where is your position actually?
It's a good question. I'm trying to think of an easy example with traditional finance. I mean, not to go back to this simplistic example, but really, the individual at the foreign exchange counter, I think, is kind of really the easiest way to think about it, right? They're simply facilitating the exchange of two different assets, and that can be equated to the foreign exchange, the foreign exchange market for currency. You can kind of extrapolate, think of it as a bank in a way. You can give your bank US dollar and get euro for an exchange or something of that nature. But it's also kind of a new concept. It doesn't really, I mean, it does probably exist, but it may not exist kind of easily in traditional finance, because we really kind of are in a new paradigm, if you will, with all this. But I think the easiest way to think about it is that individual at the foreign exchange counter. That connects with me, at least.
Yeah, because I mean, Forex is these two currency pairs, right? And it's also, if you go to different Forex brokers, they will quote you different prices, and so it's really quite difficult, right, to really find a platform, especially even an exchange in a traditional fiat currency, right? So I'm sure that with cryptocurrencies, it's a whole new world altogether, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and then that brings up a good point. I mean, and one of the benefits about RenVM is it's completely neutral. I mean, it's just it's a network, so you're not going to get any biases. No one's going to charge you extra fees. Like, everything is transparent. Like, if you send RenVM, XYZ currency, that'll show you the exchange rate, and then you'll get that exchange rate for the other asset. So there is no kind of there's no human element to it, which actually has some benefits in some ways. So it's trustless in a way, and I can explain the whole trustless dynamic as well if you'd like.
Right. Right. So you mentioned earlier as well that the RenVM is able to change not just between cryptocurrencies but also between fiat currency and cryptocurrency and other assets as well.
Yeah, so I mean, they do have to be represented on a blockchain, right? So whether that's USDC, or any other kind of stable asset, it does have to be, digital based, of course. I mean, we don't have any fiat on ramps or anything like that at this point. We're going to let other organizations deal with the on ramp within the respective jurisdictions. But once it's in kind of the digital asset ecosystem, then we can exchange really any asset at that point.
As long as it's in the blockchain, it's in a digital asset platform.
Correct.
All right, understood. All right, Andrew, any questions on that?
Yeah. Look, I'll get some. I've got some questions from the viewers. So we have OJJ, who asks, will fees always be set to 0.1% of, or can this be voted in, voted for in the future?
Yep, great question. Yes, so it can indeed be changed, and it will be turned over to governance in the future. So if the network says, oh, we're doing all this work, but we're not getting paid enough, and dark nodes start dropping off because there's a lack of profitability, for example, they can vote to increase the fee and therefore kind of sustain the network and its redundancy. So it's all kind of economically balancing that fact. Right now the team obviously has set the fee. And we're in a phase of mainnet called Sub-Zero, in which we're kind of, proving our hypotheses are correct, right? So we're saying, okay, we've set up 10 bips for mint and burn. Does this facilitate a robust network in a way that secures all these assets that it's holding? And so there may be, a few months in, we may decide to propose a new fee change as an organization. But this is really our time to experiment and get the correct economic incentives aligned. But as mentioned, this will be turned over to governance soon enough as well.
Cool. So I've got maybe a couple of comments and maybe a question from Bitcoin Blues Brothers Triple B. Triple B wants to know, how do the rewards get generated, say, if the number of nodes reach 10,000?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, everything is split evenly amongst all dark nodes, right? So if there's 10,000, then there's going to be less kind of for everyone. So there will be a free market kind of element in here that's, at a certain point, it won't be profitable to run all these nodes, right? So naturally, people aren't going to run a node if there's no profit there. So that'll kind of give an economic equilibrium to the amount of dark nodes. And as the network grows and as fees increase, then we can essentially assume that the amount of dark nodes will increase as well until they reach that maximum threshold.
Cool. Now, also from Bitcoin Blues Brothers, he says, don't forget to mention the rewards can be in the asset which is supported in the transaction, obviously. So you already said that, yeah. So this is a comment also from Bitcoin Blues Brothers. So DeFi is the new oil, Ren is the refinery. So another question from Leong Po Chin. Would it be the exchange of digital assets only, or would it enable exchange of digital assets and traditional assets?
Yeah, so as long as the traditional assets, whether that's a barrel of oil, or gold, or wheat, that doesn't matter, as long as it's on the blockchain and represented in some way. We're starting to see a lot of these traditional assets kind of live on Ethereum, and so we'll assume that trend will continue. So you'll have a price of oil represented as an ERC20, and that will fluctuate as it does in the traditional financial market, and be a tradable asset. So those will be supported, but again, they do have to be on the blockchain.
Cool. Okay. So I've got another question here now. So Michael, you mentioned the concept of a decentralized custodian. Perhaps we can sort of explore that a little bit for like a little bit deeper and maybe maybe explain what a centralized custodian is and how how's that different from a decentralized custodian.
Yeah, so the simplest way to think about a custodian is just a bank. You send your money there, they hold it, and they keep it safe, right? And sometimes you can send your money to a bank, to a particular savings account. They'll hold your money, but you also earn interest on it as well. So that's at its most basic level the easiest way to think about it. It's just a third party that's holding your assets safely, so you don't have to worry about it, right? Now, next step is a centralized custodian in kind of the blockchain world, right? So take that concept and just apply it to blockchain. So you're giving this custodian your Bitcoin because you don't trust yourself and you want to, make sure it's safe, and, under a lock and key somewhere. And so that's a centralized custodian. But most centralized custodians are, of course, located in a particular jurisdiction, and they have to abide by the laws within that jurisdiction. And if some issue comes up and the government or whomever wants to freeze your account, they can just reach out to this custodian and say, hey, this individual, we want their money, right? So, and then they freeze your money, you have access to it. But then that's typical of all kind of custodians and banks throughout the world. So nothing new there really. And then kind of the third step, so a decentralized custodian, same concept. It's a network that holds your money in a safe place, right? And back to the dark nodes, that no one can see the private key, not the team, not the nodes themselves. So it's in theory in a very safe place because no one can access it. But now the real nuance here is all of these little private keys are broken up into thousands of little pieces and kind of held within all of these dark nodes that we're mentioning, right? So if someone wanted to freeze your account, they couldn't necessarily do so because it's a network. There is no entity, there is no individual to go, and throw in jail or whatever the circumstance is. So that's kind of the true benefit of a decentralized custodian is no one can shut it down. I think is an important point. But also it's trustless. Again, there is no human element. It's just a network. So you ask it to send you money and it will, and vice versa. So that's another really, really important piece. It establishes a base layer of trust, universal trust, which is, I think, maybe something to keep in mind, is that this will be a layer of trust kind of underneath everything, and you can build things on top of it. And that's really where the composability power comes in. You can say, okay, I trust RenVM to hold the money and do what it does. Now I can build an application on top of it, and power anything you'd like. In fact, so that's I think the simplest explanation of a decentralized custodian I could think of. I'm happy to expand on any of that if you'd like as well.
Yeah, that was a really good explanation, and I think for the local viewers in Malaysia, think of it as when you open a broking account with any of the local brokers, right? And then you whenever you put you would pump money into your account, right? You send and then you buy and sell shares, but that's in what we call a noms account, right? A nominees account. So so that's a custodian, right? They're holding your shares on your behalf, right? So that's the centralized custodian concept. So now instead of it being a legal entity, we're trusting it to a system, a network that does that. And you mentioned that the dark nodes have split the private keys of whatever coin it is, say Bitcoin, right? Into all the. So is it distributed amongst all the dark nodes, or is it 1/3 of the dark nodes, or?
So it's actually within. It rotates within shards. So per shard, I think it's about approximately 100 dark nodes per shard, and that key is broken up into these 100 dark nodes, and then it's shuffled every 24 hours.
Wow.
So that is another kind of security mechanism or stopgap on top of all of what we have currently, to make it even safer, right? So if someone, were to like try to hack into the system and get access to all these dark nodes, which isn't really possible, but if they were to try to do that, they'd have to do it coordinate all this and do it within a 24-hour cycle as well, because it's shuffled every 24 hours.
Wow. And so you mentioned, building this base layer of trust. I suppose once everyone understands that concept that you've just mentioned, the trust automatically comes in. Like how do you even break that, right? Especially when you have 10,000 dark nodes out there, right?
Right.
Theoretical 10,000, but you can have thousands of dark nodes out there. But to actually break that security. Now, is that where is that the breakthrough is that where Ren had that breakthrough? I mean,
yes, that is really where we stand out, and more of this. The technical term is secure multi-party computation, SMPC, and that's what allows you to break up a secret, and the secret is the private key, into hundreds of little pieces, and then when you want to do an action, spend, mint, whatever it is, these nodes come together and agree. They're like, okay, it's met the conditions we need. We'll go ahead and release this Bitcoin. And doing that in a decentralized fashion is the breakthrough. SMPC works and has, since the 70s, but only in a controlled environment with like a couple nodes, that never go down, and are controlled by an entity basically. And what we've allowed, what the breakthrough really is to kind of increase the decentralization. So there's, in theory, 10,000, but also it's a liveliness factor as well. So in traditional SMPC, if a node goes down, like say the electricity goes out, or someone tries to hack it or something, then the whole kind of system shuts down because they can't talk to each other, right? But with RenVM, 1/3 of our network can go down. Like the power can go out, internet can stop, whatever the issue is, and it can still compute and still kind of move forward. So that's really where the breakthrough comes through. It's an SMPC protocol that is lively and safe if 1/3 of the network goes down. And as you can imagine, we're running nodes all over the world. Somebody's electricity is going to go out, or some issue is going to pop up eventually. So it's pretty important to have that backstop there, and that previously was not possible.
Wow. So 1/3 of the number of nodes can actually go down without taking out the network.
Correct.
Wow. So that means you've got built-in redundancy that's working in the background.
Yep.
That's really amazing. That's a huge breakthrough, right? I mean, that's
yeah, absolutely. And credit to our CTO Long and our one of our researchers, Ross. They kind of created this, and took some concepts and kind of married them together and really provided this new way of doing things for SMPC. So it is a technological breakthrough, which is what we're really excited about. But for the general public, they're like, I don't know what SMPC is, and I do not care. So we have to kind of figure out the best way to convey all this. But that's really what's allowed us to create this product that has so much potential.
That's huge. That's amazing. Do you know, are there any other projects that have achieved what Ren has achieved?
Yeah, so not in the fashion that we have, and then again, we've kind of created our own custom SMPC algorithm to facilitate all this. Now there are a few other projects working on an SMPC based system. So they break up a private key in a bunch of little pieces, but the node infrastructure is a little different, and the way that the security is constructed in a different way as well. So one that comes to mind is TBTC, which is another kind of ERC20 representation of Bitcoin. I know they're doing something based off of an SMPC protocol, but there are some relatively big differences in how they actually go about doing it. So there's some trade-offs there as well.
That was TBTC. Was that the one that went down 2 days after it was launched?
Yeah, so they released maybe mid-May, but yeah, they had some issues, so they took down the network, and they're gonna I
Okay.
think, get it re-audited and kind of corrected, and I think they'll be released in the future.
Cool.
That's my current understanding, at least.
So I've got more questions for you, Michael. I've got a lot of questions.
I've actually I've got a hard stop at 9. Sadly, I've got another call. But I'd love, in the next 4 minutes, I'd love to answer as many as I could.
Okay. All right. Look. So now I understand that there's this thing called the Alliance. Can you tell us a little bit about the Ren Alliance and what the Ren Project team hopes to achieve with this initiative? What does it mean, particularly to that in the DeFi space?
Right. So yeah, as mentioned, I mean, I see and the team sees RenVM really as a utility for all of DeFi. We see it as something that can benefit the entire space. So that really is kind of the root of the Ren Alliance. We went out to a variety of projects that will either utilize RenVM, help secure it by running dark nodes, or kind of like help develop ancillary services or educate the public. So those are kind of the 3 criteria for joining the Ren Alliance. And then as we were testing out mainnet, we started mainnet back in November of 2019, and we've been testing it for 8 months before we even went live, in fact. But while we were testing it, we were kind of going out to all these projects and saying, hey, we've got this thing coming. Would you guys want to utilize it? Would you want to help with security and or kind of help with education and all that good stuff? And that's really how it started. They helped us test. They helped us, kind of design product market fit, all these good things. So it's really a collaborative group, if you will, or a collaborative consortium of DeFi projects that want to help bring this utility to the larger ecosystem. And of course, a component of that is business development. We want to make sure that the network gets usage, of course. It needs to be useful. So this was kind of an assistance on the business development front as well, where we were able to talk to a lot of projects and refine it in a way that they're happy with it and would actually ultimately use it. So that's kind of how it started. Yeah, so it started off in, I think, February. And right now we've got 56 members total, and we'll be releasing a few more additional members here in the next couple of days, which we're excited about. But I mean, there are no like formal commitments or anything for the Ren Alliance. It's just like, if you'd like to help with the system, you can. And there are some benefits that are provided to those who join as well. We'll help with marketing, and we'll help test their product if they actually integrate RenVM. We'll provide some liquidity in certain circumstances. So yeah, it's a consortium of DeFi projects who are helping bring RenVM to the larger ecosystem. In summary.
Thanks for that, Michael. And look, we're almost at 9. Thank you very much for your time. All the best to you and the Ren team. You guys, I mean, major breakthrough. Congratulations. This is amazing.
Thanks to our dev team, definitely. But yeah, absolutely a pleasure to be on. And if you guys or any of the audience has any questions, just come and join our Telegram. Just go to our website, and all the links are there. It's renproject.io. Come in, ask questions, run a dark node, do whatever you'd like. We'd love to have you participate. And it was an absolute pleasure speaking today, and I wish you all the best. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for joining us again.
All right.
And guys, all right.
See you guys. Bye.
See you, Michael.
Bye.
Okay,
all right,
Benny.
that's Michael Burgess from New York. He's like my Andrew says, he's a busy man, so you have to leave exactly at 9. Maybe later Andrew can answer some of your questions on the comment section, because Andrew is one of the project investor. You invest in that project as well, is it, Andrew?
Yeah, I got in, pre-ICO in the early of 2018. It's back then. It sounded like a very interesting, complex project and a complex problem that they were trying to solve. As you heard it from Michael, directly from Michael on the breakthrough that they had, which was essentially the solving of or the use of SMPC, the multi-party computing, right? Obviously for most people it doesn't matter for them, right? But to solve that technical issue will allow for so many things to be that they can do. And as you've heard from the security model, it's a very sound security model as well. And in terms of look, just for our viewers, obviously now this is education for educational purposes only, right? I'm not telling you to go out and buy any Ren or whatever. I'm just saying that to experiment, obviously you need to have 100,000 Ren to run a dark node, right? And obviously that is to bond. It's like a bond, right? It's like you need to have like a security deposit if you're going to be part of this network and you want to run things. So I think it's got pretty very interesting token economics, right? Tokenomics, and the whole game theory has been quite well thought out as well. And obviously things can look great on paper, and then it could be different in real life, right? In application. So that remains to be seen. Like they've just launched on May 25th, I think. So it's I mean, so far, no bugs have been found. They facilitated quite a few, quite a lot of transactions, right, within the DeFi space. Obviously, I've been tracking and following this the progress of this project since 2018, and it's interesting because right now, if you were to mint, right, and you send a Bitcoin. And have that representation minted within the Ren network, right? They still need 6 confirmations, so that's about 1 hour, right? So per confirmation is 10 minutes, so 6 is 60 minutes roughly. But then there are interesting projects out there that takes on that risk. So again, the DeFi space mimics what's in centralized finance, what's in there today, right? It takes on that risk, right? So there's a project out there called Zero Confirmations. They take on that risk, and they will mint it almost immediately, right? Rather than wait an hour for the thing to be minted. They take on that risk. They charge you a fee for it. Then once it's minted, they get they get it, and then but you get your minting done faster. So they take on that risk, and for that risk, they get rewarded for for a fee. So there's so much happening in the DeFi space. I go to sleep and I wake up the next morning. There's 10 new DeFi projects. So and the innovations in this space is crazy, right? So yeah, it's very exciting. We were very lucky to be able to get Michael to jump on today. I've been speaking to the team and trying to get them to come on the show. So very lucky to have gone Michael. Yeah.
Well, it's quite interesting, right? Because right now in Malaysia, we still talk about crypto scams and all sort of things, right? But behind the scene, if we are not aware of what's really happening in the crypto space, we really do not know that all these infrastructures are being built, right? And to cover all the loopholes, it's like when the whole financial system started, when the banking system started, then you have the compliance, and then you try to plug all these holes, and all these things are happening, and we are still here, do not know what's happening, and that's the reason why we have these sessions here, right? To actually see that despite, I know there are a lot of people who are still skeptical in the crypto world, in the blockchain technology, but a lot is being done right now in the crypto world as well. So all this platform, I think I don't know whether we got we get to live to see all these things when the whole thing is going to be full blown, right? But definitely it's interesting to see, and like Andrew said, he's there because this is like the start of a financial industry, right? So he's really participating in it.
Yeah, it's look, if you I've used it on the show before, right? The mine is like a parachute, right? it works best when it's open. So we should all have open minds. I mean, just to, this show we try to bring to you to help our audience understand what's actually happening out there, like what's happening. And obviously, Michael was able to explain a lot of very difficult concepts. If you were to just go onto the website and just read their stuff, like it'll be quite difficult to understand. In fact, he helped me understand something a little bit better tonight as well. So it's it's ever changing, it's ever growing, and it's moving at breakneck speeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, no, so go on. You have something to say?
Yeah. So like I said, for the more technically inclined, it's like we all have our smartphones these days, right? And we just swipe and tap and do whatever, send pictures and videos and all that. Now, in that base layer, there's this thing called TCP/IP, right? So TCP/IP is the protocol layer that allows for all these things to happen on your phone, on your your tablet and all that. Think of RenVM or Ren as the TCP/IP. It allows for all these things to happen, and without that, it cannot happen, right? So it's pretty amazing. Like it's amazing what they've done. Except now, like TCP/IP, we couldn't monetize. Somehow, we have monetized protocols. So that's what's actually has happened. Not just protocols. I mean, look, obviously Bitcoin as well, and all that. Bitcoin is nothing but a protocol, really. So yeah, for those more technically inclined, you'll understand what I just said. But essentially, this is it. Like I hope those who have joined us tonight, right, have learned something new about what RenVM is and what's happening in the DeFi space. Because I don't know about you guys, but I am actually very excited with what's happening in the DeFi space, because these guys don't sleep, right? They're filled with coffee and pizzas, and they just go all night long, right? And they just code and build stuff. So this is and it's round the clock, right? Because one city goes to sleep, the next one wakes up, and then they continue coding. Because as you can see, their team is actually based all over the world. Michael's in New York, right? And you got some guys down in Singapore. Some guys in Australia. They're all over the world, right? So it's really interesting.
Yeah, so it's quite difficult for even people like myself to actually catch up, right? And the best place to catch up is actually on Crypto Night, because we have Andrew here who's gonna bring all this to us, right, and update us on what's happening as well. All right, so yeah, great session, Andrew. Really, thanks for bringing Michael Burgess in.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us. We're already out of time. We have our Mandarin session is going to start in 5 minutes time, so do hop to the Mandarin section of our page to get access to the Mandarin live session. All right, and tomorrow we have another special session for businessmen and businesswomen and for entrepreneurs. The topic is going to be about companies that are in financial distress. All right, and what would be your options? Okay, before finally thinking about closing your doors. All right, so there are options, because we're going to have someone who is really experienced in this, Mr. Rodney Koh. He's a corporate lawyer for more than 20 years, and of course he's very well versed in the financial industry as well. All right, so please do join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. Alvin and Rodney will be live. And if you have any friends who are entrepreneurs or business owners, please share it to them so that they too can find what are the options, right, in terms of finances. All right. So thank you very much again tonight for joining us tonight. We will see you again tomorrow. Andrew, good night.
Oh, Benny, next week we have a special guest as well.
Oh,
He's
next
also
week
joining us from the States. Yeah.
Also from the United States.
Yes. So next week we have someone from the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Foundation who's joining us. So
𝐓𝐡𝐞.
𝐓𝐡𝐞, that's right. The third coin that you talk about.
So I'm gonna buy 𝐓𝐡𝐞 first before he comes in. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again. All right. Good night. Good night.
Okay, bye.